I'd never worked with any sort of sketch artist before, but watching someone sculpt a three-dimensional figure as I described it to them was certainly an experience. By the time I was finished, winter had arrived. I didn't know where Reuben had got to, but it was Winter who showed me how they put the sketch into a database to try to find matches. We were also running a search with the name I'd heard in that vision too. And we ended up with 3 possible matches as a sort of digital lineup. It has to be the one in the middle. He has the same 2 moles on his face.
Looks like his last known address is in this dome, Sector 4, right near the victim's place of employment. You did say you got the sense they knew each other.
That was just based off a vague jumble of feelings. I got the sense of recognition or something.
We'll send someone to find him and find out.
I have to admit, there's a part of me that questions how easily everyone accepts what I claim to have seen earlier, given there's no verifiable proof of it.
You mean other than the fact we literally found the guy using that information?
He gestured to the screen before going back to typing into a manual input device. We found a guy.
I mean, I get what you're saying. Something like a vision isn't exactly hard evidence. But Psi is a well-understood phenomenon, so of course we take it seriously. We have ways to verify pre- and post-cognitive activity by looking at phoric system scans, though it's expensive, and we didn't have any of it prepared for you anyway. In any case, we just use the psychometric experience as a springboard for finding hard evidence. It's not like we're basing a whole case off this. Anyway, I've put in a few requests that need to come back, then we'll track this guy down and go talk to him.
He leaned back again, lifting his arms over his head and stretching.
Hard to believe you've never had an experience like this one before, given the level of detail you saw. But I guess that's what happens with a queen rank.
My rank was never confirmed, you know. And I'm not sure I know that much detail. Everything was pretty blurry for most of it.
Yeah, well, I'll take Endgame's word for it.
I made a face at that.
You may not like it, but it is what it is. I've never seen someone hit so hard by a theokinetic experience. Wonder if it's your specialty.
And if I don't want any psionic specialties?
I suppose you may have to get used to the idea. When you learn to direct the experiences better, maybe it's not so bad.
You say that like you think I'm going to be hanging out at a lot of crime scenes in the future.
I'm just saying that once you got over the initial panic of not knowing what was going on, you seemed less shaken up than I'd expect.
I'm trying not to think about it is all. I've had other things to worry about since then. Just because I can be calm doesn't mean I wasn't bothered by witnessing an attack that resulted in someone's hospitalization, even if I didn't see. I looked down, swallowing hard. I hadn't seen the actual crime, but I was certain that was only because Reuben snapped me out of it first. If I'd seen any more than I did, I would definitely be shaken up. I'm glad I could help, but I can't even begin to sort through the fact that my day went from being a normal day to witnessing a crime. My feelings were a chaotic jumble at this point. Sadness, helplessness, and the whole thing left a bitterness in my mouth I couldn't quite swallow down. I wouldn't be dealing with this at all if I wasn't an Esper, you know. Or if my situation hadn't spiraled out of control because someone else found out I am one. It makes me angry. And then I think I don't have a right to be angry, and it's complicated. Maybe it's weird to be grateful I can be of help, yet also be frustrated by the exposure to a situation I wouldn't otherwise be dealing with. And then there was the guilt because that felt so selfish to say. Compared to the victim, I had it easy, so why was I even complaining?
Listen, I understand it's not what you wanted for your life, but I'll be honest here. I don't know why you're so determined to hate everything to do with Psi. I don't have any at all, so I suppose I'm not an expert. I only enjoyed a few years of having Psi at the planetary standard as a kid before the nanite resistance set in. So I know I don't get the ins and outs of having full-blown Psi. But just from a practical standpoint, it seems useful. Not just for things like today. I mean, you were studying archaeology, right? Don't you expect having Psi would be useful for locating, I don't know, artifacts? Alien booby traps?
A tired smile came to my face when he said that. I really want to correct the booby trap misconception, but I'll let it slide for now. Using Psi for that kind of work, though. I had to admit that thought hadn't occurred to me at all. I suppose you may have a point.
Hey, look who's back. How are things going over here? Sorry I disappeared like that. We think we may have found him. Put in a search warrant request before we go chase him down and see what he knows. That's great news. I can tell by how thrilled you look. Morgan, can I speak to you for a moment?
Yeah, of course. He really looked unhappy about something.
I guess I'll have Tracy go with me since you'll be occupied. This is one where we definitely can't take your protectee with us. Sounds good. Let me know how it goes. Of course.
Winter nodded to me and stood, shooting Reuben another curious look before he walked off. Reuben took over Winter's chair, staring at the profile of the man we had identified with a strangely troubled look on his face. Reuben, what's wrong? Something's bothering you.
Oh, listen. I just finished talking to Phil about what happened with you. He had some thoughts.
Bad thoughts?
I don't think it's bad exactly. Look, first of all, we're going to need to register you as an official Esper consultant, especially now that your experience was used to identify a possible suspect. It's standard procedure to only use registered consultants, so we need to get that taken care of right away.
Am I getting a job with you here? Like, she's very good at what she does, and we kind of need her to be registered anyway, so why don't we just do that? I mean, that's fine. If you were worried I'd be resistant to that, please don't. I understand the need.
Even though we have to have your information in our system, we can keep you anonymous when it comes to all public information. We work with many people who would rather not have it publicized they do consultant work, so it shouldn't interfere with your protected status.
Alright. So, what's bothering you?
Phil was wondering if you'd be willing for this to be more than a formality for this specific case. As in, would you be willing to consult on some other cases? He thinks that doing so could work in your favor.
Work in my favor in what sense?
It goes back to what we were talking about earlier today, with Endgame most likely trying to find a way to get you to Core Solaris so you can stay there. Might be harder if you can make a valid argument for contributing out here.
Ah, I see. It's like, she doesn't have to join Endgame. There's like plenty of other jobs she could be doing, guys. Alright, I see.
Given the discourse lately, showing that you're not a danger but an asset could demonstrate how ranked Espers can be beneficial to society if they're allowed to actually take part in it. That's Phil's thinking anyway.
You have Esper consultants already, though.
We have quick access to a few scattered infantry-level Espers for consulting, yes. And most of them are low or mid-level. Psychometry, which is the skill we make most use of, is inconsistent even for some bishops, so you can imagine what it's like for infantry. If we want someone who specializes in it, we have to bring Endgame in, and pay their high consultant fees, which are higher than most freelancers. On top of that, applying for help is a lengthy process, and we can't afford to do it every time. Not to mention their tendency to take over cases, which is a separate issue.
Let Paul and Endgame are on the same side, but you make it seem like a competition.
It's not a competition, but half the time, when Endgame takes over, we don't even learn the results of the investigation. Can you imagine the lack of closure when the family never learns whether justice is served? I don't want to say we compete, but I can't deny there's some bitterness. And there's been more than one occasion that we've investigated someone and Endgame takes the case over. Then our suspect shows up a few months later in one of those damn black and white uniforms.
Oh, interesting. Well, that would be a bitter pill to swallow. It's like, I have a pretty good feeling that person committed a crime? And you're just like, but they're a strong person, so we're just gonna bring them into Endgame. Ew. That happens?
Not much, but enough. So not having to rely on Endgame is something we'd prefer. But it's also part of the bigger discussion. If we find this guy right away, it's a pretty powerful statement about the value of having someone of your skill level available to work with us without the red tape.
I can see Phil's point. I'm already here anyway, and it's hard to deny I've established the potential. It sounds like putting me under contract is just an additional step since I have to register with you anyway.
But look at what happened today. You were distraught after what you saw.
I was more shaken by the suddenness and by not being sure what happened, though. It wasn't that I saw something horrifying.
But you could have. When you do this work, you see the absolute worst society has to offer. You see the best of it too sometimes, but it doesn't always balance out. And you didn't ask to be in this position. I get where Phil is coming from too. It's so difficult to find competent freelance psychometrists. And even then, they don't see full scenes like you did today. But you need to know what you're getting into.
Yes, but we're not talking about me doing this as a full-time career forever. Just temporarily.
I guess that's true too.
And the fact that it could help me and others in the long run is appealing.
Listen, you don't have to decide today. Not about the contract issue. Something like becoming a test case to challenge perceptions and policies isn't a decision you make lightly.
What does being an Esper consultant look like? Like, what do they really do? I assume they don't just go to a crime scene and hope they stumble into a vision.
Well, not just that. They get background on the case and investigation first. And then they go on a location and hope they stumble into a vision.
Ah, so not that different from today.
Knowing what to look for helps them stumble with greater precision. It's not only crime scenes. You would potentially do interrogation observation, even handle some evidence since psionic echoes can linger on items. You would not be chasing suspects down dark alleys if that's what you're thinking. If you're interested in the proposal, I could arrange for you to meet one of our other consultants to get more information. They may be low level, but they're still experienced.
Well, we are a confident lady. I would love to work with you, sir, on some cases. Let's crack the case. I'll do it.
Meet the consultant.
No. I'll register as a contracted Esper consultant here. Though I'd like to meet an existing consultant too, of course.
Wait, you don't have to decide right now, Morgan. I didn't mean you need to decide today. We have to get you registered today, but the contract...
I know that. But we're talking about an opportunity to move from a passive wait-and-see situation to me actively preempting Endgame's potential attempts to relocate me to Core Solaris. I don't like the idea of having to prove the validity of allowing me to exist in society, and I worry a little about that precedent. But let's be real. New Albion's entire system is built on proving one's contribution, so it's actually already a precedent in some places. As much as it would be better to not have to prove my ability to exist without causing problems in order to be given the chance to exist without causing problems, I'm aware that's idealistic. A track record of actual work using my abilities proves I don't need Endgame's training, while also making it clear that there's value in unaligned Espers at the same time. That has the potential to benefit me, and maybe others as well. While Esper consulting isn't my dream job, I'm willing to cling to any available options if it means I can avoid getting dragged to Endgame or somewhere else. especially if it's only temporary. I don't need time to think about that.
You really are.
Yes? I smiled and covered one of his hands where it was resting on the desk. I understand you have reservations, but this gives me back some control of my own life. And that's more than I've had since I was first targeted by Endgame and everyone else. The fact that Esper policies for adults are vague gives us an opening to show why they should be strengthened in favor of Espers having freedom to choose how they live.
That's all valid. But you still don't have to decide right this minute.
Reuben, if I'm being dead honest with you, even if I take a day or two, it won't change anything. There are times I sit down and make lists of pros and cons, and there are times I know right away what I want to do. This is one of the latter situations.
Oh. Okay. Alright. I wasn't expecting this. I thought we'd do the registration and leave the contract for later.
For a moment, he looked like he didn't quite know what to do and appeared to be mentally going through checklists or something. Well, not like my tendency for snap decisions hasn't surprised others too sometimes.
Look, let's get your registration done before we leave today. We need that as soon as possible for the current situation. I can go over the full contract with you this evening and we can work on it at home. How's that?
Work on it at home. I love that. I love that he's already like, it's our home. It's not like, at my place. We can do it at my flat. We can do it, he's like, at home. That's cute. That sounds good to me.
Alright. We'll work on that then.
Reuben was right that the registration was simple. Until it became apparent I was missing personal information, of course. With my temporary status in Cerna and my protected person situation, we got stuck on how to handle my address. There were other necessary fields we also weren't sure about. Reuben ended up on a call to get some of it sorted. And I felt weirdly drained by the time we were finished, though maybe it was just the day I'd had. In the morning, Reuben had worried if I was well enough to handle a simple tour. I had done way more than a simple tour by the end of it. I was mentally and physically exhausted by the time we got back to Reuben's place. Shower time. It felt like the first moment I had to myself was when I stepped into the shower. So of course that's when everything came crashing in. Why is it always the shower? I suppose it was a strangely good place for thinking about heavy things. Shower thoughts and all that. And I had a lot to think about. So many unexpected things had happened in just a few hours. Too many. I hoped it wasn't a sign of things to come. Periods of limbo followed by periods of rapid change. I let out a groan and tipped my head back to let the water course over me. Ugh, what a chaotic day. I shut off the water and stepped out of the shower, reaching for a towel. Sitting on the toilet seat, I gently wrung the water out of my hair and started to dry it. After that, I quickly dressed and made my way to the living room. Look whose hair is all nice and soft and unstyled now. Reuben was leaning against the back of the sofa, and from the sound of it, he was just ending a call with Winter. He smiled when he saw me. Update from Winter?
Oh. Yeah. They've made an arrest.
Already? Based on my vision?
That's right. He's being interrogated now, but it's pretty open and shut. He already confessed.
Wow. That was somehow faster than expected. Would they still be looking for him if it wasn't for me? It was a strange feeling. Gladness that I'd been helpful and that they'd apprehended a dangerous person. Sad that they had to. I wondered about the details. The motives and all that. It didn't feel appropriate to ask just to assuage my curiosity, and I didn't know if Reuben would answer even if I did.
Anyway, we don't have to talk about that right now. I hope you're feeling better.
I'm fine. No worries there. Just a little tired.
It was a long day.
Tell me about it.
I was thinking about takeout for dinner.
Oh? So you don't always cook nutritious meals for yourself even if you're at home? Scandalous. Morgan. Scandalous.
If that's the worst scandal I ever have to deal with, I'm doing pretty well.
I don't know. Unhealthy eating is pretty bad, but I suppose I can forgive it once.
I'm glad to know I won't get a public flogging for one meal that isn't home-cooked.
Public flogging is a bit intense, even for me. I was just going to mock you relentlessly.
Says the person who, by her own admission, had no food in her kitchen the day we met.
Guilty as charged.
We'll keep your crimes against a healthy diet off the record, I suppose.
That's a relief. Wouldn't want to add to my growing criminal record.
So, if you are really ready to move forward with the contract, I was thinking we could go over the details while we wait on dinner.
Of course. It'll be nice to get it completed tonight if possible.
Morgan, you know, today you...
He trailed off, looking away as his expression went serious again. Serious and strangely uncertain. What is it?
I was just thinking that your ability to take things in stride and adapt to your situation is pretty admirable. You always pick yourself up and keep going. It takes a lot of strength to do that.
There's not much else you can do in the face of extraordinary situations, is there? As much as I'd love to spend a few hours crying on the floor every time the unexpected happens, you can't always do that, can you?
No, but not everyone can adapt as quickly as you did today. Some people take a while to adjust, which is also fine, of course. But the ability to quickly stand back up and move forward is... I admire that trait a lot.
He's falling for you, girl. Even more. I'm not always as able to do it, I hope you know. Sometimes I take my time to be upset. A lot of time to be upset. Sometimes I have a tantrum when things don't go my way, the way anyone does. It depends on the situation. I guess I just believe that most people are more capable of adapting than they think they will be. Sometimes you just do what you need to do.
I agree with that, but it's still...
He looked away again, as if he wasn't sure how to phrase whatever it was he intended to say, and it felt like his face had somehow deepened in color. It's pretty hot! He finds it very attractive. It's always much easier to be strong when you have people supporting you, too. And you've gone above and beyond to be supportive. I hope you realize that's the biggest reason I'm okay right now.
Oh, I just did what anyone would do.
I'm not sure I agree with that, but either way, I'm grateful.
Oh, you don't have to be grateful for that.
Too bad. You can't stop me. I took his hand gently, the cheeky grin softening a little. You can't stop me from being grateful, so don't even try. He cleared his throat awkwardly and turned away. I thought his ears looked redder than normal. Could have been the light.
I'll take care of dinner, so just give me a few minutes. And then we'll pull up the contract to look over. Anything in particular you like food-wise?
I'll let you decide if you don't mind. I don't know what's nearby or what's good, and I don't think I have the brain power to devote to it.
No problem. I'll take care of it.
He motioned me to the sofa, and I sat there while he made quick work of ordering dinner, then joined me so we could discuss the consultant contract. He was right that it wasn't complicated. We weren't quite finished by the time food arrived, but it was signed and set up in short order afterwards. The road was diverging from what I'd thought, but it felt like things were moving again. I had yet to decide if that was good or bad, so I would just have to do my best to make sure it was good.